There's a baseball prodigy out there who's gotten the attention of big Hollywood names. It started with actor Adam Sandler. Eventually, studios got interested in Christian Haupt's story. And his love for baseball is just a part of it. Christian says he used to play for the Yankees in another life. I'm Sue Biamba, and this is Mysteries of Life. I've come across many topics and stories that some may find hard to believe. And that's completely understandable. What I've also noticed in life is how unconventional ideas, be they scientific or spiritual, for example, can be rejected as soon as they're brought up.
I said, do you see anyone in here who doesn't like Babe Ruth?
Kathy Bird and her family know what that's like.
And Christian immediately pointed to this right here. And then he said, that's me.
They say they believe he is the reincarnation of a baseball legend from the 1920s. The idea, so unfamiliar to Kathy, who is Christian, emerged when her teenage son was a toddler.
He would say, I used to be a tall baseball player. I was tall. And we would correct him, I would correct him and say, oh yes, you will be a tall baseball player. And really just ignored it and brushed around it, even though something's kind of strange. He had to wear his baseball uniform every day, like full socks and hat and pants, and even in the summer when it was so hot. And then one day he just got so frustrated, like that moment I'll never forget, is he was standing in the living room and I was pitching him balls, and he said it, I used to be a tall baseball player. And I said, oh yeah, one day, I did the thing, I corrected him, one day you'll be a tall baseball player. And he stomped his foot on the ground and he said, no, I was tall like Daddy.
Here you go, you ready? See that scoop?
Even though his curious claims were dismissed, Christian's natural talent for baseball wasn't. At some point, he got the attention of a comedian and actor, Adam Sandler, on YouTube. Kathy says Sandler's casting director saw a video of her son she had uploaded.
You gonna play for the Red Sox or the Yankees? You like Matt Kemp? He's gonna play for the Yankees, my boy!
While Kathy and Christian were in Boston for the film, they went to a Yankees and Red Sox game. What would happen there at Fenway Park, the oldest stadium in Major League Baseball history, made it clear to Kathy that her son wasn't playing games.
I saw a picture of Babe Ruth and I was like, I don't like him, he's mean to me. I stormed out of the stadium mad.
It was very embarrassing because people were walking by and they're like, oh, this kid's onto something. Babe Ruth was kind of a jerk. I was laughing. I'm kind of like hiding my face. But really, these moments, they seem funny and silly, but he was so emotionally charged by these memories. Like, we actually had to leave the stadium, even though we had tickets to see the game. He just was very upset.
Do you remember what you remembered when you were little?
I actually don't, because it kind of faded away once I started turning 6 and 7. I just lost all train of memory from it.
And as he explored the world of baseball, Kathy, putting 2 and 2 together, started to open up, embarking on a spiritual exploration to understand what her son was experiencing. So she went to an authority, her church's pastor.
And that did not go well.
Kathy recalls the pastor saying that what Christian was experiencing was something to be worried about. Perhaps the doing of an unwelcome spirit.
That was something that was really upsetting. So I kind of, I'm still Christian and we still have our Christian beliefs, but it kind of sent me on a different path. And I ultimately discovered a woman named Carol Bowman, and she wrote a book about children's past lives. And once I started seeing the patterns, and in her book she describes when children are sharing these memories, oftentimes it's right before bed, right after they wake up. But once I found Carol, she was the one who kind of guided me. And she said, just ask questions, listen, ask questions, no leading questions. And you also should try to show him pictures from that time period and see if he recognizes anything or anyone or can share with you anything.
who Christian may have been in a past life was still a mystery to Kathy at this point. Following past life therapist Carol Bowman's advice, set off the journey of discovery.
So this photo was the first photo I showed Christian after he had told us many things about being a tall baseball player in the 1920s when they were taking trains. So I found this picture of the 1927 Yankees. And I asked Christian, do you see anyone in here who doesn't like Babe Ruth? So Christian looked at the photo, he looked at all the faces, and he immediately pointed to this one and said, that's me. I didn't know who this was at the time. So what I had to do later was go down and Google that team and figure out who this was. So that's when I found out it was Lou Gehrig.
Baseball Hall of Famer Lou Gehrig, the man who set baseball's original Iron Man streak of 2,130 games played in a row. Set in 1939, the record stood unbroken for over 50 years. Gehrig, a fellow Yankee to Babe Ruth, is considered a legend. But Gehrig's history is bittersweet. He announced his retirement after being diagnosed with ALS, a disease that harms the nervous system. The following words of Lou Gehrig would be mythologized in baseball history.
So I close in saying that I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for.
In 1941, Gehrig succumbed to what we now call Lou Gehrig's disease. This is the Hall of Famer that Christian says he used to be. After he had pointed to Gehrig in that picture, Kathy says she followed Bowman's advice, kept calm, and pulled out more old pictures of the Yankees. He pointed to the same player, she says, every time.
I called Carol and told her what happened, and she said, okay, now what you need to do is find pictures of Lou Gehrig's parents and things from Lou Gehrig's life and see if he has recognition of that. One of my favorite pictures is this right here. And this is Lou Gehrig and his mother.
Wow.
Yeah, when he was a teenager.
Kathy says she showed Christian a picture of Gehrig's father, Heinrich, asking her son for his name while suggesting made-up ones. He turned down the first 5, including the 6th, which was Heinrich. Then Kathy suggested the name Heinrich went by, Henry. He said yes, and went on to correctly identify the name of Gehrig's mother, Christina, among made-up names. By this time, Kathy believed he was none other than Lou Gehrig. But within her heart, a conflict arose between the possibility of reincarnation and her Christian beliefs, a conflict that carried over into her personal life.
2 of my closest friends from church were the ones who really, in the beginning, were like, come on, Kathy, you have to get over this, like, stop reinforcing it, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of God. So that was hard, like when you have people who you care about who are close to you, telling you basically, like, this is nonsense.
Kathy says she made an effort from then on to keep their conversations to lighter subjects. Her husband would also try to shut down conversations on the topic, even though he agreed something strange was going on. Speaking with a different pastor about it, one she was closer with, was still a challenge as fear would come over her. What would pastor say about her son? That he was crazy? That he needs an exorcism? In an email, the pastor cited Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27.
And just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment.
Kathy says she felt sick to her stomach. The pastor offered to pray for her and her family. So what did Kathy do?
There's a quote by Mark Twain that I love where he says, it's not what we don't know that gets us in trouble. It's what we know for sure that just ain't so.
Her research. What she found about reincarnation, including its presence in early Christianity, would lead her to the next phase of her spiritual journey. Were the concepts of reincarnation or past lives always rejected in Christianity? Before going into that, the definition of reincarnation, put broadly, it's the process of a soul's rebirth in another body upon death. The new body could be human, animal, and even something from a hellish or heavenly realm. By that definition, if one believes that a soul can be reborn as something higher than human, going to a heaven
and obtaining a heavenly body, for example, then their belief could be considered a kind of reincarnation. The Christian religion, for the most part, rejects the concept of reincarnation today. Emphasis on religion, as about a third of Christian adults believe in reincarnation. That's according to a 2021 Pew Research poll. And in early Christianity, teachings were more diverse than they are today. Take Christian theologian Origen of Alexandria, considered a church father by some, has been described as one of Christianity's most influential and most controversial minds, and he's said to have believed in reincarnation in some form, but this is debated. Let's look at one of his works called On the First Principles, which is considered the first systematic text on Christian theology. In it, he explains why he believes that all spirits begin in a oneness with God, but fall to different positions and bodies of existence according to their merit. But another way, spirits can fall to become angels, humans, demons, etc., based on their level of merit. But the fallen can ascend to higher orders of existence, he says. In a lecture on Origen's work and his belief in universal salvation, Professor Charles Stang of Harvard Divinity School said the following in 2019.
The transformation from flesh to fire must be free, Origen thought, and thus it will take a long, long time. Many lifetimes, and perhaps successive worlds. In other words, reincarnation.
But like we mentioned, debated. Professor Peter Martins of St. Louis University told us that Origen explicitly rejects reincarnation, but believes that after we die, the soul continues its education elsewhere. A number of Origen's teachings were officially condemned as heretical by the Eastern Orthodox and Catholic Church in 553 AD, about 300 years after his death. Even before Origen's time, reincarnation was present in the Western world. Closer to Christian's case, Plato's dialogues discussed rebirth among humans. In Meno, one of his dialogues, Socrates makes this argument.
The soul is immortal and often born.
In Phaedo, another of his dialogues, Socrates discusses the soul's cycle of reincarnation.
If it is pure when it gets free and drags nothing of the body with it, it goes away into the unseen, which is like itself, the divine and immortal and wise. But if it leaves the body polluted and unpurified, such a soul with this on board is weighed down and dragged back into the visible world.
Socrates even says it's likely the gluttonous and violent who haven't taken heed to their ways enter the bodies of animals. The potential rebirth as an animal is an Eastern belief as well. Now, modern science is taking the possibility of reincarnation seriously. In a previous episode, we interviewed Carol Bowman, the past life therapist who offered Kathy advice. She referenced Ian Stevenson, the founder of the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, the department that researches reincarnation.
And one of the patterns that he saw is that children most often remember their deaths when they talk about past life memories, usually up until about the age of 5 or 7, and then the memories tend to fade. And this is universal across cultures. And family is where they believe in reincarnation and don't believe in reincarnation. So it's a natural phenomenon, and quite often children remembered how they died, and most of these deaths were traumatic. So again, that idea of PTSD, traveling from one life to another, showed up, and children would often have phobias relating to the way they died.
Christian said that he started losing his memories of being Lou Gehrig when he was 6 or 7. Stevenson's division, formed over 50 years ago, still researches reincarnation today. In 2020, its director, Dr. Jim Tucker, said that they've studied over 2,500 past life cases in children, and that about 2/3 of them were solved. A case is considered solved when the child's description of specific past life details, such as location, match a real location and the people who had lived there. Through her work as a past life therapist, Bowman guides patients through what they believe are emotionally charged past life memories. By doing this, she says patients can be healed of their trauma by making sense of their past. Having done her research on reincarnation, Kathy slowly began to forgive herself for going beyond the Christian beliefs she had at that time. She says this unleashed a new sense of freedom in her, eventually contacting Dr. Tucker from the University of Virginia, a life event that would push her spiritual thinking even further.
Dr. Tucker from the University of Virginia School of Perceptual Studies, he came to our house. He's a person who's done a lot of research on past lives of children. And while he was here at our house, Christian said something fascinating. Dr. Tucker said to him, do you remember how you died? And I had never asked him anything like that. And he said, my body stopped working. And then Dr. Tucker said, then what happened? And he said, I felt nothing. And then out of the blue, Christian said, I picked her to be my mom, which was shocking at the time. And Dr. Tucker kept asking questions. He said, oh, really? Where were you when you picked her? And he said, in the sky. And so this was something that was completely new to me. And Dr. Tucker said it's actually quite common in these kids that recall past lives, that they actually can have specific memories of choosing their parents. So that kind of led me on another path because
at some point, Christian had indicated to Kathy that she wasn't just his mother in this life.
When Christian originally gave us his past life memories and then told me that this was me when he saw this photo. When Dr. Tucker was here, it really kind of opened my eyes. What if there's something to this? So I went and I did a past life regression, which again is not a Christian thing to do necessarily, right? I had some guilt around going under a hypnotic state and accessing this, but it was really the most fascinating experience of my life. I have the transcripts. So that to me was really where the proof came through. What happened through these regressions is some information came through about the life of Lou Gehrig's mother. Her name was Mom Gehrig. She was a great woman, a great supporter of baseball, just a great, great person. And through my regressions, it came through that she had some items that she had shared with a family, like a charm bracelet, a watch that Lou Gehrig had given her. So I went on a journey to find these people. It involved going to Cooperstown, New York, to the Hall of Fame Museum, going through piles of documents about Lou Gehrig's life just to find this family. I tracked down this little boy I had seen in my past life regression as a 10-year-old that Lou Gehrig's mother was living with and had given this watch to. I found the family. They had also donated items to the Hall of Fame Museum. And I went, and it was awkward at first to go out and try to meet them and say, hey, do you have Lou Gehrig's watch? But we did meet, and he was a 73-year-old pastor, and he had this watch that I had seen her give to him as a child. And he was able to confirm all the details of my past life regression, that Lou Gehrig's mother lived with them. We went and saw the house that I saw in the regression. It was exactly as I saw it.
That pastor she met was Reverend Ken Steigler, who referred to Lou's mom as Mom Gehrig. Convinced of it all, Kathy would go on to make one of the biggest decisions of her life: keep this to themselves or write a book about her family's experience. A book that could be read by anyone, their friends, their family members, and fellow Christians, opening their lives to potential criticism, widespread condemnation, and spiritual discrimination.
Anytime you share an unconventional belief, it's going to be resisted, and I knew that my kids could be hurt by it. I'm not even really a writer. Before this, I was not a writer, but I really felt inspired to put this down on paper, to share this story. I thought in some way, like, this was a gift that was given to us, and it was our job and our duty to share it.
It was published in 2019, The Boy Who Knew Too Much, an astounding true story of a young boy's past life memories.
I think my kids now really get it too, that the reason we're sharing the story is for a higher purpose, to give people hope and faith in the belief that our souls survive death, and just really to bring more love and compassion into the world, and compassion for people who are different than ourselves, knowing that that could be us.
There it is.
In contrast to her previous experiences with pastors, Kathy found a warm and intrigued heart in Reverend Steigler when she shared her family's story.
This is fascinating. I do not believe in reincarnation due to my faith, but I do believe this is an example of wisdom and knowledge that cannot come from rational experience. It is information that comes from being in the flow of the channel of God. This wisdom and knowledge is allowed by the Lord.
It was very freeing to me, like to have him believe and not say it was an unwelcome spirit or that my child was possessed. Like it really was like the gift at the very end of the journey. When we are so set in our beliefs, we're missing a lot, right? Like we can go through our life thinking we know everything, we're 100% right, but I think we should always keep an open mind. And I think that near-death experiences, children with past lives, things that give us insights into the mystery of life are there for us. These gems are there for us. I don't resent, the church not believing, because really people are, a product of their beliefs. And now when I share the story, I'm very cognizant of that. And I don't want to violate anyone else's beliefs, but just share our story. Yeah, and so Christian's going to be, he's even going to be playing baseball at a Christian high school. I think for Christian, it's been quite a process. Like he was thrust into the spotlight at a young age because he was on YouTube. Then came the book. But he stayed very grounded through this whole process because he really has a passion for baseball. Baseball is his life. Every weekend we're at tournaments. He's getting ready to go to high school and play high school baseball. And I think it's kept him grounded. He has close friends near him. So I think the criticism or any kind of bullying he's received has really just made him stronger, and without getting bitter, without getting angry, and just having a sense of humor. I think that's the most important thing, is just to really stay grounded, keep your people close to you, and have a sense of humor in life as well.
What message do you have to parents who might be going through the same thing?
To parents, yeah, I share with parents now what Carol taught me, is just to be very open-minded, to listen, not to project. If you ask questions, just open-ended questions, not leading questions. One of the great things about writing the book is that I do have parents and people reach out to me a lot with similar stories. And I think that's something too that's really validated Christian, is knowing that he's not the only one. Like, your story is special, but not unique, So I think that's really been a blessing to hear these other stories too. And it's very fascinating. And just to see other parents validating their kids' stories because they heard our story is really a lovely thing.
Your mom supported you a lot throughout this whole process, and she didn't just ignore you. She acknowledged you and made sure that your experiences were valid and real. What do you feel about this?
I do know that a lot of other people, that's what the parents will do. Like, they'll just be like, oh yeah, it's just like a dream or something. But she took it seriously, and I appreciate that.
What are you doing now with baseball?
I'm playing on a travel team in Huntington Beach, and I'm just going to continuing playing, and I just hope I can make it to the MLB one day.
That might just be a historic day in baseball for those who believe in their story, the day Lou Gehrig returns to the major leagues. After hearing Christian and Kathy's story, I see how coming to explore new spiritual beliefs can be difficult for many, even painful. How fear and guilt can prevent one from being their authentic self, and how these negative feelings can come from within ourselves and the world around us. In spite of it all, Kathy followed her conscience, and in the end, attained a new understanding of love, lifetimes in the making.
It's been great having you with us. We've still got big questions, so we hope to see you next time on Mysteries of Life.